I see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
No. Oh, wait. It might be my computer. Okay, go again.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I forgot I muted my computer.
Okay. So I'm good.
You're good.
Perfect.
Yay. Very good.
Well, the stupid, I had this thing set up and nothing was supposed to touch it till today. And then it decided to reboot and everything was off the screen when I woke up this morning. I thought, oh no.
Oh my God. Yeah. I had to just restart my computer a while ago and I'm like, no, dang it. Stop.
Electronics really stresses me.
They make our lives easier and harder all at the same time.
I agree.
Pain. Ooh. Let's see. Text them and let them know I've opened up the meeting.
You made me look at a whole bunch of stuff that I hadn't looked at in a long time.
I'm telling you.
Well, listening to
just the interviews, I'm like, oh yeah. So, but if that's kind of the point, is just to get everybody's mind thinking,
right?
Get it working. Hey, Cindy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you. Hi, Chris.
Howdy.
Larry must still be doing his makeup.
He must be. He's going to look real pretty.
Come on. And then once he gets on, we should be pretty ready to go. So if you have anything that you want to show, like a book or something, just make sure you have it now. If you need water, a snack, whatever you need.
Got my water. I'm ready.
I got my diet soda in a hurricane glass.
There you go. As long as we don't have like a stage left, like Bob in the middle of his interview, he's like, I'll go get that, I'll be back. And
that was so funny.
He was gone, and I'm like, oh wait, what happened?
Oh, how funny.
That was so funny.
So I'm like, all right, let's make sure all of our people have all their stuff ready to go.
Yeah, I didn't get that far.
Oh, that was hilarious. Where's Valerio?
Still in makeup, I guess.
I guess so.
He said he was all dolled up on our chat.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder if he's having technical problems.
Could be. I'll write him.
He got a little wonky on the test thing once or twice,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and I still don't know what their situation is like down there, even after all those horrible hurricanes, you know, and
Right.
even all this time later, I think they're still having problems just getting back to.
I think all they built back was the tourist areas and everybody else is sucking air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I heard last.
Yeah, I
But of
think
course,
they're still in a bad way.
talking about it.
So give him another minute or so, and then we can go ahead and get started. They start screaming on the feed if you're not right on time.
They can wait.
I think so too.
So tired of entitled people.
No kidding.
Like, quit stomping your foot at me. You're not even, if you want to do this, go ahead.
Right.
I mean,
You do whatever you want.
You're not getting paid to do this.
No, I'm
So
paying money, you know, to upgrade my Zoom account so we can push it through to Facebook and all
Right.
the recordings and all that stuff. And I don't mind doing it at all, but it's like,
There he is.
there he is. He had to have a change of scenery.
Hello.
So,
Hi. Yeah,
Hey there.
better light here.
yeah, excellent. Okay, well, are y'all ready to go? You good?
Good.
Yeah, I think.
Are you ready to do this? All right, let me patch us through. It'll take just a minute to.
Hi, Chris.
Hi,
Hi,
Val.
Cindy.
Hi.
Hello.
You look beautiful.
Take just a second to push everything through. All right. Here we go. Perfect. All right, we are live on Facebook. I want to give a warm welcome to our panelists for today. Some of our fabulous breeders that we have that have wonderful, fabulous dogs, and they are all mini breeders, so I'm very excited for this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Just a real fast to read our little release. I want to remind everybody out there listening that the purpose of this forum is social in nature and is to be an encouraging learning environment and a call to action in our. We each have our own individual responsibilities and accountabilities with this session. The purpose of the session is to hear from experienced breeders in our breed. The conversation can be diverse with different opinions and perspectives. Diversity can create a feeling of confusion or disagreement, and that's good as long as it's respectful. If you're out there watching, please participate in the conversation through the chat box, but please don't use the chat box as an individual. And as always, what I will do is I will go to your questions towards the end. So if I don't get to it right away, know that I will come back towards the end and ask. It may be something we cover while we're talking. Your questions and comments must be applicable and relevant to the conversation. We will have questions and commentary that is related to the subject, but not of a personal or political nature. This event is being live streamed on Facebook and will be available to watch after the video is over. You must be on Facebook to participate. This event is not sponsored or endorsed by any formal organization or entity. While we invite judges and other authorities, this should not be deemed as an official education event, nor should it be interpreted as authoritative content. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad you were able to meet with me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I think it's going to be great. So let's open it up by introducing yourself and your kennel name, what you breed, how long you've been breeding, You know, just kind of give us a little bit about you. So Cindy, you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Cindy Simpf. My kennel name is Dynadox. I breed mostly mini smooths, a few mini wires in more recent time. I started showing in 1989. Had my first litter in 1990. How I got started was kind of interesting. Like, I always have been animal crazy, whole long list of animals as a child growing up. But also growing up, my father's breed of choice was Dachshunds. So it was just obvious for me, because besides being animal crazy, I always wanted to have puppies. Well, there was nothing else but, a Dachshund, particularly miniatures, is mostly what we had. And so by the time I was at a point in my life that I could actually do this, happened to be married to Doug Simpf, who was a competitive Bass Club fisherman. And he wanted the wifey to have something to do on the weekends, which he later regretted. So one of his fishing buddies' wife was a show breeder of Yorkshire Terriers, of sterling Yorkshire Terrier fame. So he hooked us up together, and I started going to shows, and she started educating me from, ground zero up on breeding and showing and all of that, and was a fabulous mentor. So my urge to have puppies ended up being, 32 years now in the AKC sport of dogs. That's kind of how that accidentally happened. Here we are.
Excellent. Chris, what about you?
Hi, folks. My name is Chris Natale. My kennel name is Chris Cross. I purchased my first show dachshund in 1988. I thought it was 87, but this has caused me to go back and look at some things. It was 1988 that I purchased my first quote-unquote show dog, and I purchased her from Maurice Klinke Badgerland Kennels in Wisconsin. My concentration has always been miniature smooths. However, I did have a strong miniature wire program at one point, and I had a nice, strong standard smooth program at one point. I still have 2 standard smooths living here. I had to give them up because I just can't do them. They're too big. They're too destructive, too smart. Anyway, so the concentration remains in miniature smooths here. And I'll talk about how I came to it. There's another question that pertains more to that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Valeria, what about you? How'd you get started?
Hi, my name is Valerio Hernandez. I'm from Puerto Rico, and my kennel name is Sunrise Dachshunds. First of all, thank you for making me part of this panel and be able to share with all these 3 beautiful ladies that we have here. And well, I started basically having dogs all my life. I grew up with Pomeranians. My father had Pomeranians. That was the first dog that I met. And then after that, I pursued to go into boxers, but the breeding and the complications due to the white in the litters and, finding good stock, being a high school student was difficult for me. So I just quit for a while. I tried to show them a while. I did pretty good, but then I moved up and decided, to pursue my career in the university. I graduate, and then in my first relationship as a Valentine present, I just got this miniature dachshund that I knew it was going to be born for February, and it was my Valentine's present. It was from a lady here locally that had a relationship with Maurice McClinky from Badgerland, and she was actually pretty nice, to be my first dachshund, my first pet. I put a world champion on her, plus the American titles and everything, and then that was kind of, I think, 1993. And I have my first litter like in 95, I think. After that, well, it's become crazy and it's nonstop. You could not have just one. It's viciously. So I'm full of dachshunds now. It started with a present, and now I have a lot.
It's a present that kept on giving.
Yes.
And taking.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys so much for your introductions. Let's go to another question. When you decided to start breeding, what was your motivation, specifically in wanting to breed an advanced dachshund for future generations? You know, what was your goal when you first started breeding? Cindy, you want to go first again?
Yeah. Well, besides that, I wanted to have puppies. Then, as I got more involved with, you know, the show scene and being mentored by Kay, I figured out that, or came to understand that if you're going to breed, you also need to show, because you need to educate yourself and make better dogs. Don't just make dogs, and that dog showing is theoretically the measuring stick for your breeding program and how you are doing. So it wasn't that I started out that was what was going to happen. It's just I figured it out as time went on, and the more I learned, the more I was interested in. Yeah, I want to breed miniature dachshunds, but I want to breed quality miniature dachshunds, and you know, put all the work and education and everything into figuring out what that meant, and going from there. So it wasn't like I just knew it. It's like I learned it. It was a process. And I mean, to breed a better dog, how do you know how to breed another dog if you haven't studied enough to know what a better dog is? There's just education is key. And so that's how it started. Knowing I needed to figure out what I needed to figure out, and then studying.
Excellent. Chris, what about you? When you
Well, with
decided to
me,
start breeding?
well, with me, I always thought, since I was a little girl, 10 years of age, I always thought I would be breeding quarter horses and thoroughbreds. And even at that time, I was planning out my stables, my paddocks and everything. I was drawing all these plans, and I always had a kennel on the side of it, and it was going to be crisscross German Shepherds. And that was my little dream growing up. And I was in 4-H, and I showed horses and I showed cattle. And then I became an adult and realized the cost that goes into horses. And that was like, oh, I'm not doing that. And sometime during that time, I met my first dachshund, and she just stole my heart. And I told myself when I lost her that when I became a settled adult, I would buy myself a purebred dachshund, because she wasn't AKC registered. So I did. And I'm a breeder at heart. I had a Cocker Spaniel growing up, and my dad was always bringing home pregnant cats and things. So we were always having things born at our house. So I bred her, and she was just a pet dachshund. And I used to go up to Wisconsin in the summertime, and the puppies, I advertised them in the Madison paper there in Madison, Wisconsin. And that's when Maurice Klinke, he called me. He needed a pet for a client of his. But then he started asking about her ribbing and her eyes and her top line and her bone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, these are just pets. But he intrigued me, and he came out, and I asked him to evaluate my dachshund. And he was just the essential kind person to do it. He turned her upside down and took his hand way down her belly and said, I can show you ribbing that goes down to here. And I thought, ribbing, you know, what's that important for? And he started explaining the features of the dachshund. And so I went out to his place, and that's where I got my first dachshund. But I'm always a breeder at heart. And I knew that's what I would do. I thought, it just went off in my head, ding, 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 you know, here's your horse farm. Here's your stable full of beautiful horses. It'll be, you know, a kennel full of beautiful dachshunds. And I didn't have any intent to breed anything ugly, as a matter of fact. I always say the only fault I can't live with is ugly. But I was motivated as a child, and then educated as an adult, like Cindy was saying. You know, you've got to learn, you've got to educate yourself. And so that was how I got into it. I wanted to breed a better dog than I had.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Valeria, what about you?
Well, at least me, I always have been very perfectionist. I like to find the why of things. I like to know why this is certain way, why it's the other. And I've always been like art oriented. I'm art oriented in my business, in my bakery, in my creations. And I see dogs as a canvas or as material that you shape into something that you want to create. At the beginning, I didn't know all this because I was just seeing, coming from boxer, from a big breed to a small breed. I started realizing when I started looking at paintings and drawings and art and sculptures made by people we all know, artists in the breed. I'm like, I want my dachshunds to look like that. What does it take to make them look like this arc of neck, this called looks like something. Now I know that's called breed type. Why this dog have this breed type, how I get it, how I can, how do I breed for more upper arm, things that I know now. So I started investigating. Me being in an island that is 100 by 35, there was only two breeders here, one standard, one miniature, the one I got my first miniature from. I started investigating about the club, and then I discovered that as in boxer, there was a Boxer Club of America. There was also a Dachshund Club of America. So I started investigating, looking for the standard, reading the standard, comparing to the FCI. I was like in the middle of, okay, FCI wants this, but AKC wants this. I want to read something like in the middle, like something that will be good for both rings, the FCI and the American. So I always seen like there could always be room for improvement, and create an individual that will be like, when people see this dog, will say, oh, that's a Sunrise dog. It comes from a person who's, no matter what it combines, what he keeps and pursues in breeding is like the same type. I think that was what motivated me to pursue and breed. Besides, like Cindy said, we all like to have puppies, are our motivation. And also in this quarantine, if we wouldn't have puppies or dogs in our house to play, we'll be driving crazy. It's like we need that every day, and on a daily basis. It's in our DNA. We need dogs.
I know that my dogs have gotten into all kinds of trouble, more trouble, while I've been home from work than they would have normally. So they're definitely alive and well here. Thank you guys so much. When you were exploring the world of dachshunds and you decided to breed and you talked about what motivated you, where did you go? And what was that experience like? Chris, I know you touched on that just a little bit, and I'll have you expand on that a little bit more. But when you decided to start breeding and you needed better than what you had, where did you go and what was that like for you?
Did you say Chris or me?
It doesn't matter. Whoever wants to go first.
Let's keep it in order. Cindy.
Okay, Cindy.
Okay. Repeat the question.
Okay. When you were decided that you were ready to breed and wanted to have better dogs, where did you go and what was that experience like?
Well, of course, I was going to dog shows and meeting the people ringside there in the very beginning, and then started, figuring out who were show breeders, buying books by the bookcase boxes and reading and trying to figure out, like, how do you buy a dog if you don't know what a good one is? So it was a lot of phone calls to a lot of people, a whole lot of hearing, oh, you don't want to show miniature smooths.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember, back in 1988, it was a completely different ball game for miniatures.
Right.
And, there was a wide array of quality, and there was a lot of room for improvement back then. So I was talking to everybody that would talk to me. I ended up finding let me back up. I was totally set on a black and tan bitch. back in 1988. Y'all are laughing because you know what I was looking for, a needle in the haystack. So it took me a couple of years to actually get that first bitch, and she came from an associate of Cliff and Robbie of AdSims. So she had the AdSims prefix on her, and that was who ended up being champion AdSims Ritzy Rockette. And so in the beginning, a whole lot of my, who I talked to and figured things out with was just cold calling people. Lord, the hundreds of dollars spent on phone calls.
Right.
Talking to people at the dog show, talking to people on the phone, and buying old books and periodicals and just pouring through. So I had 2 years to go to Dachshund College before I actually even got a hold of my first show puppy. So it was kind of a mix of things because, sitting here in Central Texas, it's not like I had a mini smooth breeder with what I was looking for. I was still learning what I was looking for besides that. So it was a long process, but I feel like I was better off for it once I got started. But I think the next question is about mentors, so I'll just stop here and save the rest for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Chris, what about you? Where did you go?
Well, I went back to Maurice Klinke because let me tell you my backstory. Here's what I was left out in the beginning was that I got this little red bitch. He picked her out for me. He had a litter of 6 on the ground that I saw when I went out to his place, and they weren't old enough to leave. And he said, I'll send her to you later. So that fall, he sent her to me. And, I was absolutely in love with her. She was a clear red. Like Cindy said, there were hardly any black and tans around at that time. And, he had told me to join the all-breed club, get in the handling classes, because I was alone, like Valerio and Cindy. I'm in East Tennessee. There's nobody here that breeds miniature dachshunds at the time, I should say. So when I started showing her, I was surrounded by some of the most beautiful standard smooths in the country. This was the end of the 80s. The standard smooths were just tremendous at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I would look at them and I'd look at my little dog and I'd think, man, she doesn't look like them. Even though she was small, she should look like them. In my mind, she should be a standard miniature. And there wasn't anything overt that was wrong with her. It was just that she did not have the elusive breed type. And it's so funny that everybody's talking about that recently on the page, because she didn't have it. I mean, she had everything else. I mean, she had almond eyes, she had a level top line, lovely ribbing, kind of a nice front. She didn't have enough bone, I don't think. But anyway, but I kept showing her and I was learning as I went, watching other people, asking certain questions. I'm not a big talker. I'm kind of reserved with people, but I would ask certain questions because I have this very curious mind. I want to know the why also. So when I realized she didn't have the breed type, I went back to Maurice Klinke's place, and he had about 20 puppies, and he told me that I could pick out any puppy that I wanted and take it back, buy it back, So we sat out in his backyard, and he turned about 20 puppies loose, and they all had collars on, all marked. And we sat there and we watched them, and I had an idea what I was looking for this time. And I said, I want that one. It was a black and tan bitch in the middle of the pack, and he went waiting out there and picked her up, and she had the collar on. So he looked at it and he said, well, you can't have her. And I said, well, why not? He said, because she's got my name on it. And I said, no, you told me I can have anything out here. So he let me buy her and bring her back. And she was the foundation. I always say that Chris Koss started in 1989 with the addition of Champion We Chapter 2. And I named her that because she was the new chapter I was starting from my original little red bitch. So that's who I went back to. I knew no other miniature breeders. I had been to the shows, but I was, these are standard breeders, and I didn't want standard dachshunds at the time.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Maria, what about you? Where did you go? You said you're on an island in Puerto Rico. What about you?
Yeah, well, here I have nowhere to go. I step my feet out of the house and I will be on the water. So I decided after, you know, I tried and tried and tried, I showed my bitch, the one that I started with. And then it's like, now is the next chapter, how I'm going to improve this dog if I have nothing locally that I could, you know, there's no dogs here from this breed. So I decided to start contacting different clubs, and I contacted the club of East Coast or Dachshund Club in Florida. I contact and I talked to OT Jimenez, and I said, "Oh, Spanish-speaking people, this is a good start." So she said, "You know what? If you want to improve, you want to breed, there's a person in Florida. It's called Cliff Simonis and Robbie Addis." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And you know what? He's Cuban and half Cuban, half Brazilian. He speaks Spanish. He's very nice. So go and talk to him. So that's what I did. And, you know, from that day that I just called Cliff the first time, it was like a click. And it's a relationship that lasts for almost 27 years together, breeding and producing some really nice specimens. So that's why you will see many dogs starting with Atsim Sunrise or Sunrise Atsims. We never had a no or a yes. You know, we were like family. Um, at the end, when, you know, they decided to stop breeding, where I continued the line, he left me the remaining dogs. Almost all of them were bred or co-bred with me, and that's how I got Obsidian too. From he recently got it from Chris. Um, so I had, like, you know, I had this connection with them. Then after that, I contact also by like the same time Sandy Golem, who had some of the same dogs going back to the same bloodlines, going back to paw prints. We have a really nice working relationship too, like, you know, family too. And, you know, I've been fortunate to be, the people that I contacted were people that were very nice with me and very helpful. And that's how I will basically say that I, you know, I started this breeding program and up to date. And recently through Sandy, about 12 years ago, I also met my partner in dog, which is the exo part of my prefix, my Sunrise exo is Patricia Godright. I met her through Sandy. She got dog from Sandy. She was showing in the in California area. So, you know, it's been like little steps, like baby steps, from having no one to then starting meeting people that will help me, and then to the person that we're now breeding together and being, I think, pretty successful in the breeding program.
Well, I think anybody that's newer into dogs doesn't realize all the groundwork you guys all laid, you know, coming in at the end of the 80s, early 90s in miniature dachshunds. And you look now, and most of y'all's names are back behind a lot of these dogs, you know, that have carried on. And it's, for those of you out there who don't know too much about it, it is so difficult to breed in miniature. I feel like the qualities, you know, to get all of that in an 11-pounder underdog, it is so hard. And I just have the utmost respect for you guys to be able to do it, because just like Cindy was saying, there weren't a lot of quality places, I guess, that, you know, y'all were working on it back then. And so it's amazing to me to look back and see what's happened over the last 25, 30 years in miniatures overall, and how stronger the quality is now. Let's segue into our next question, which is, who are or were your mentors? And what was that experience like for you, Cindy?
So I had several people that spent time, you know, telling me what was right and correct on dachshunds in general. And I'm probably going to forget a lot of them, but in particular, the lady that I got the AdSims bitch from, Peg Brandt, she spent some time with me. I bred to, there was a, she's still in Texas, Maria Hauser had a champion double as my kind of town son named Morgantown Amos, and I bred Delilah to him twice, and she and I were at dog shows together, and she spent a lot of time, you know, with me, because I mean, in the beginning, you just like, it's just so, the breed is so complicated, especially fronts, I feel like, are one of the hardest things for anybody to grasp. So it was helpful to have some one-on-one time, you know, with somebody like her. There was, in particular, talk about those hundreds of dollar phone calls. Somehow I came across a gal up in Canada named Jerry Gilbert, and I have racked my brain what her kennel name was. I believe that her parents also bred miniatures, and I think they were like last name Thompson or Johnson or Thomas. Anybody who knows the answer to that, please put it in the comments, because I actually went and tried to Google it so I could say. But anyway, Jerry spent lots of time on the phone, and you know, she'd been breeding. She was second generation breeder of miniature dachshunds, and she was so giving of her time and expertise that, you know, that kind of discussion, even if it's over the phone, is just invaluable. The Copenhavers locally graded some, you know, helped me out, graded some puppies. I can remember taking puppies to their house, and Barbara would sit in her recliner, and the first thing she would do is take that puppy and drop those in from the front and watch those front legs drop down, you know, and how they fell on the body. Cookie Rouse, she graded some puppies for me, and you know, gave me some direction. And probably another big one would be Jeff and Lori Wilson, because when I start going to dog shows, and Lori ended up handling a little bit, or just from being around there in the beginning, they were a great resource. You know, she was at least second generation involved in the sport of dogs, because her grandmother was a breeder of mini smooths and mini wires under the Cindy Keys prefix. So I kind of had a handful of people, not just like one, which I think for me personally, I liked talking to all the people that I talked to. And when you start hearing the same things over and over and over for more than a handful of people of different, you know, sizes, coats, whatever, chances are you're on to something. And then with all the books that I had, that I read, and the periodicals and the articles and all of that, you know, it just takes some time to absorb a lot of it. And but I really do feel like when you start hearing the same bit of information, chances are you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Excellent. Chris, what about you and your mentors?
Yeah, again, I was alone in East Tennessee, but my original mentor was Maurice Klinke up there in Badgerland. And he, back then, like Cindy says, the phone, you had to pay for your long distance phone calls. So, but what he told me to do, he gave me a little list to do: to join the local all breed club, to join NMDC, the National Miniature Dachshund Club, to join DCA, the Dachshund Club of America, and to go to handling classes. Excuse me. And so that's what I did. But I had a mentor that nobody's probably ever heard of in the dachshund world. She was my second most important mentor, and her name was Jane Reed. She was a retired handler who I met just serendipitously in a stained glass shop where I used to work. She worked there too. We both designed stained glass. And I was so excited about my new little show dog. And she goes, oh, I used to handle dogs. I handled the #1 Brittany in some year or whatever. We became fast friends, and she lived near me, and I was able to take my little dog and go over to her house, and she would tutor me in the driveway, and she would tell me about dachshunds, because she also handled dachshunds too. I think she might have handled some of Bob Palmer's, I don't know. But she also actually went to my first dog show with me, and she took my little bitch into the ring so I could watch her. And that's just the kind of stuff she would do. The next day I took her in, and but she's the one that, you know, put it in my ear that, you know, look around at these dogs. Go ask John Thompson if you can go over his dog. You know, big standard. She goes, now come and go over your dog. Is it the same? You know, are you seeing it? And she's the one that, you know, pointed out to me that the little bitch didn't have breed type. So she was a very powerful mentor for me because I could call her anytime. It wasn't long distance. But Maurice, I'd always touch base with in the summer times when I went back up there. And then as far as my breeding experiences go, when I met Imogene Stevenson about 1992 or something like that, we became fast friends. And she was a big help to me when the actual whelping process, when things went wrong and when things went right, and what'd you do when this happened? You know, she's just a wealth of knowledge. And still to this day, if I have something really odd, I can call her and say, did this ever happen to you? And she, you know, was one of them. Then there were people that didn't know they were my mentors, that I listened to, they didn't know I was listening, or who helped me just on one simple little thing, but they really made a big impact on me. And I wrote their names down because I did not want to miss out on any. One of them was Martha Grantham. She bred standard longs and she had standard smooths. Michael Zolo, he was a handler. Bobby Fowler, Bobby Barlow, those two men helped me a lot. Bobby by trickery sometimes. Lynn Cope helped me. I don't think I've ever told her that she did, but she helped me tremendously in one show because it still stands out in my mind. John Thompson, of course, is, as you know, much as controversial as he was a really good dog man. He knew his stuff, and he was willing to share it if he felt you were worthy, I guess. Maybe he felt I was worthy because he shared it. Pam Fleming, Ed Behringer, they were both very helpful to me. Then the ones I would listen to, but I was too timid to approach. I would sit behind them at the freestanding specialties would be Dan Harrison, Wally Jones, Fran Colonna. I'd sit behind those people. They didn't know it. I was absorbing everything they said, everything, you know, because I'm like a sponge when I want to learn something. But those Maurice Klinke, Jane Reed, Imogene Stevenson are the three big ones.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Valeria, what about you? What about your mentors?
Well, the first person that, you know, I started learning about the breed was the local breeder here, Maria Matos from Coamex, which was a friend of Morris, and also later on she became friend with Imogene. And I met Imogene when she came here to Puerto Rico to the 1997 World Dog Show. We spent time together. I met Top Gun. We have a great time together. Party, you can imagine. And you know, I learned from them. Then I move on into, okay, I want to go with the smooth. I want to see how I could improve this pitch, how I could get more quality in the breeding program. I met Cliff and Robbie. I think they were basically the backbone of my breeding program. In the meanwhile, and in the meantime, I met a lot of people that it's not that they were mentors, but like Chris said, they will talk to me and I will say that I could learn a lot from them. And that's actually, you know, learning. I learned from my grandfather. It's a process that it's a daily thing. You learn every day. If you believe and if you think you know everything, you're not right. You learn everything and you learn something new from anybody. Anybody could teach you something. People like Sandy Golem, Carl Lutkins, Jan Du Bois, they were breeding together. They were, you know, very nice influencers in what I learn about dachshunds. I can name them. And just as recent, you know, I even learned from she said that I'm the person that do the breedings in Sunrise, but I learned from my partner, from Patricia, other aspects in life that has to do to have a better breeding program. Colleagues that you have, like recent friends. I have a friend that I'm gonna name her. Her name is Amber Yoder. I learned with her and herbs, homeopathic remedies, you know, to treat dogs. She's been very helpful. So, you know, I'm learning every day with her. And one of the recent connections that I make is with Joanne Fagervik. She's from Canada. She's a veterinarian, and she has been the person that gave like a twist to my life in terms of, okay, I learned this from the breed. I learned how to breed and how to get what I want. How could I get upper arm? How could I breed do this? But then there's something, why a dog looks like a certain way on the table, but doesn't perform on the floor. And she has a background in horses and veterinarian, dog structure. I can say that she has changed my life in terms of breeding for a better dog that will be dual purpose, beautiful on the table and beautiful on the move too. So to make a summary, it's been like from when I started in Puerto Rico with Maria, then to Florida with the Florida boys, Cliff and Robbie, then the people from Wisconsin, then all these friends that you get in your way, you learn from them, on a daily basis. I think it's a learning process that doesn't end. It will last until you stop breeding. That will be the day that you will stop learning from breeding.
Agree. Completely agree.
Yeah.
Should never be satisfied. None of us should ever be satisfied, not only with our knowledge, but where our dogs are. It should always be, where can I get that next piece of the equation? And as we all know, it's one step forward, sometimes 2 or 3 steps back, but it's not, can it finish?
Right.
Me, and I think for y'all as well, based on the dogs that you produce, I want something remarkable. I don't want something just finishable.
Exactly.
Yes.
The bar
Exactly.
needs to be up.
You get something and you achieve it, and then when you get to that point, you want more, and that desire of improving is what keeps the breeding program moving. It's something that is dynamic.
Agree.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. My next question for you is, who do you most admire in the breed, living or deceased? This can be a person and or a dog. So Cindy, I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, I gave this some thought, and I'm just going to have to name a few of the miniature smooth breeders that came before.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mother Muriel, Dee Hutchinson's mother, and Dee of Rose Farms, Ray Phillips of Wavecrest, and also Don Ingemels and Arvilla. And I know there was somebody else I was going to mention, and it just went. One not miniature breeder that popped into my head for whatever reason, well, I can tell you why, from artwork, is Peggy Westphal. Was somebody that, when you looked at least the ones that imprinted in my mind, some of her art and some of her show pictures of her, of what she bred, and I believe she bred standard smooths and standard wires, if I remember correctly, but they just had that typey, elegant profile with all the parts in the right place. And, that's the puzzle of breeding, is getting the parts in the right place. So, as far as and I know you asked for one, but you can't I couldn't just do one. There's not just one. For people today, who I admire most is the breeders that consistently come to the shows, to the nationals, whatever. Might be the only time you see them, once a year, but they consistently show up with something that is beautiful, typey, put together, and is as pretty on the table as it is on the move. Something that catches my eye. Absolutely has my admiration.
Excellent. Chris, what about you?
Well, like Cindy was saying, all those brave people before us that walked into the ring with a 9-pound miniature dachshund. I mean, that took some guts to do that against the standard dachshunds. And I don't know, she mentioned Billy Ruffell out there of Lodox. She was pretty influential. Anybody that came in under that 9-pound rule, like Betty Adams was out there with her tiny ones. I had Muriel written down also. But to me, the game changer in miniatures, probably the person that I most admire for what happened to miniatures when she got a hold of them was Sharon Vardy up there at Paul Prince Dachshunds in Canada. I've never met Sharon. We've never corresponded, but I think what she did, because I believe she was breeding down from the standards, was just incredible, because hers were the look when I went back to pick out my typey dachshund. She happened to be sired by a paw prints dog, and then that's the look. I started looking for these paw prints dogs, and I think Sharon Vardy really did something with her breeding program up there.
Excellent. Valeria, what about you?
Well, Chris started talking about something that is very important. There's a person we haven't correspond or I never met in person, and that's Sharon Barty. When I started investigating about the different pedigrees, what I like, breed type, there were dogs that caught my eye, and they all have these paw prints prefix. So I started investigating. I found out that Sharon Barty was a breeder. I think her legacy in the miniatures is far beyond we all cannot imagine, in terms of her dogs are behind almost every pedigree we find in the United States, one way or the other, or common denominators with what the dogs she used. I think she created a breed type that is very competitive against the standards. And other people will be Betty Adams, which, like Chris said, you need to have guts to present a dog under 9 pounds to compete against the standards, and she did very well. I think that's it. That's basically when I went into what I want to look. I fixed on the popping standard. I wanted to double on them. I wanted to recreate the patterns, the breeding, the kind of breeding that she was doing. I like third edition, Bugalize, Bordeaux, all these kind of dogs, and that's what I like my dogs to look now. I didn't have the opportunity to see them moving because we didn't have the opportunity to meet or see these dogs because I live very far away. And there were other times too, probably all these dogs were dead when I started. But the breed type that she put in is what, by line breeding on the lines I have, and I know this because we have a common friend. She saw what I was doing. She saw the type that I was bringing out, the fronts. Even I was using the dog from Cliff and Robbie that went into her pedigrees, and also Hannelore is another person that I forgot. Hannelore was very influential in the miniatures, in the handling, and I think in almost handling and finishing every size or coat in the Dachshund ring. Her way of breeding, I study it too. I try to imitate, the kind of breeding that she was doing, the line breeding at the beginning, and she will create this type that I really caught my eye. So I will say it would be Betty, Sharon Barty, and Hannelore. I think are the 3 people that I admire most in the miniature Dachshund world. Excellent. From the past. That I took the lines and I started working to try to achieve something like they were breeding.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Let's talk about some of your personal philosophies. When breeding, what do you look for when you're breeding? Do you do it on the phenotype, the genotype? Do you like to line breed? Do you like to outcross? What's your formula for success, Cindy?
Well, I would absolutely say I am mostly a phenotype breeder. Going back to the beginning when I was trying to find, I had figured out in my mind's eye what I was looking for, and just completely couldn't wait for the mini digest because that's the only place anybody advertised. Bought all the old ones, saw the old dogs that I appreciated more than others, but I was looking for something that I could breed to, and I was just like super excited when I could find something that had that look. So I did breed to a couple of different dogs, which we'll talk about later, that had that profile that I was after. And basically for the most part, what I have done is bred that look to that look to that look more so than breeding on just one particular dog. Partly because we're in a breed that has some health concerns. And when I was about 10 years into it, I'm going to be honest, I heard rumblings of, you know, certain areas there was really high prevalence of seizures. And then, of course, you always have to worry about bats. So, and I was also at that time still studying and reading, so I was more into like genetics and breeding books after I had already gone through all the Dachshund books and was kind of, you know, showing and learning and getting information from all these different people. So that's at the point that I really started paying attention about, you know, not breeding too close. But if you're breeding two dogs together that have the same attributes, you're going to get some of the same results, but you're going to not tighten the lineup to where you either bring problems forth or you set faults, because the tighter you breed, the harder it is to go back in the next go round and fix where you want to go. Because if it's the same fault 3 generations deep, it's going to take, you know, it just is more of a challenge to correct it. So for me, I'm definitely low coefficient of inbreeding, but I'm breeding for that same look. When I put 2 dogs together, and between the 2 dogs, I want them to complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. Like if, you know, I don't breed 2 bad fronts together. Well, I don't breed bad fronts, or I try not to, because that's the hallmark of the breed. But I would, you know, don't breed two ugly heads together, or bad eyes, or flat feet, or no rear. It's just, you know, you're looking at 2 or 3 generations of the quality and virtues of the individual animals in the pedigree. But for me, absolutely phenotype, distant line breeding at most.
Okay, thank you. Chris, what about you? What's your formula?
Absolute tight inbreeding.
Easter?
The opposite.
Easter?
Yeah, exactly. The opposite of Cindy. However, I am attracted by phenotype. If I see a dog that looks like what I want, like that outlet, that silhouette and everything, I'll say, that one looks interesting, because you're always looking for your next good dog to breed to. Then I'll go to the pedigree of that dog. And if I see common ancestors in the pedigree that I know are common in mine, you know, that dog gets a big move to front place to breed to. But I really look for certain dogs in a pedigree. When I started out, it was Paw Prince Prime Time. I actually bought a son of his to bring in here to breed to my little black and tan bitch, who was, the top half was Prime Time. But and then that litter that I did that with taught me a whole lot, because it was fortuitous luck, or because I did that line breeding, that I got a really good dog early on in my breeding career. I mean, she was fabulous. And because I was looking for one good dog, I should have looked at the rest of the litter. I didn't. I just focused on her. But anyway, so I'm pretty tight on line breeding here. I always hold my breath when I have to go for an outcross, because when you line breed, you can bring in you can double up on a lot of problems. But if you see the problems, you can back out of it. But also, you're also intensifying modifiers. Now, I was in pre-vet before I had to switch over to nursing, so I got these high-level reproduction classes I got to go to, and I was reading stuff. One of my favorite books is the endocrinology book about whelping and stuff like that. But anyway, these modifiers, I think all dogs carry the same diseases in them, and dogs have modifiers that hold them in check. And those modifiers can be stripped away in breeding. So if you strip away a modifier that's holding epilepsy, PRA, what else is really bad? Anything, something that, you know, pops up and is really bad. If you strip that away, then you're in trouble. So I always hold my breath when I do outcross. It's a partial outcross. I do like a quarter of the pedigrees of outcross, and then I come right back in. So that's my philosophy. Phenotype attracts me. Genotype is how I breed.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Valeria, what about you? What's your formula?
Well, I think it's like a combination of both. And you start doing line breeding, at least in my case, when I saw the dogs that were behind, you know, the stock that Cleveland Robbie had, they were the common denominators of what I was looking for, was the proper bloodline, proper prime time, all the additions, this and that. But okay, the dogs that Cleveland Robbie had a certain look and type. They have good size, solid rears, good top lines, but they needed to improve a little bit on the breed type that we were looking for, like in terms of improving the little details, cosmetic things. So I started line breeding. I think line breed is good in a breeding program until you find out that you get like stuck. If you improve and then out of the sudden you start breeding beautiful dogs that are alike, but then you're not getting any better, you need an outcross. It's time for going shopping. You have to go shopping, and if you line breed, you're gonna get more of what you have. You have to go to dogs, in my opinion, that have the qualities that you need and incorporate them in your breeding program. If they have common denominators with your dogs, you will say that, okay, they should be compatible. But if you have two individuals, at least I have a bitch that is long in leg, elegant. She needs to go down. She needs to improve feet. Well, I will go hunting for a dog that is lower, good feet. I don't want it to line breed in my dog because I will not, probably out of 4 puppies, the line breeding, what we will do is that I will have one good puppy with good feet, and then probably a little bit low, then some that will be medium, and the other one will be just as high as my bitch. I want something drastic. I want those genes to shock, interact, and fuse and get the best from both without being vicious of I'm line breeding on this side, I'm going to lean to this side. And I recently observed this because the dogs we're looking that are being bred on the other side of the world, not in America, these people, they don't lean nothing. They are breeding because they are hunting for qualities that they want to improve the dogs they have. So they go to that dog that have what I want, and I put it in my mix. I just go and breed to the dog. Nobody tells them, oh, this line, you don't breed this with this, you don't breed this with that. Line breeding and pedigrees are good to have an idea, and I use it. It's not that I omit them because I see the pedigree and then I check, okay, I'm gonna double in this dog that could have some possible issues and problems, so I have to be careful. If it's 3 generations back, I don't care. If it's too close, then it will have, a bad influence in my breeding program. But the main thing here is once you have created a backbone and line breed and have the batter of what you have and is your breeding program, then you could have the luxury of do what I'm telling you. Go out, take the chance, outcross, bring what you need in a pure form, and then you have it already. What you kept has the blending of the two. Then that you put it in your breeding program. I think it's like learning a little bit from what our peers in Europe and Russia are doing and what we are used to do in America. That's the way we're gonna break of why the dogs in America look one way and why the dogs in the other side looks another way. The dogs that they started with were dogs very high leg, very not our type. They imported a little bit from different countries, England, Australia, United States. They mixed it and then they improved their dogs. They fuse. So I don't think like there's a totally correct formula like strictly line breeding or outcrossing. A wise breeder has to know his breeding program and know when it's good to stop line breeding, incorporate an outcross, and then bring the things that you need to improve your program and then move on from there. That's at least what is my point of view in breeding.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for that. Let's talk about when we're breeding these dachshunds. I know Cindy and all of us would agree, the front is the hallmark of our breed. So what are things on a dachshund that can be improved or fixed in a breeding, or several things that can be fixed in a breeding, and what is nearly impossible to fix? So What is something that you think can be improved or fixed where you would continue with that and not throw the baby out with the bathwater? And what are things impossible in a dachshund to fix that you would scrap it and try a different direction or to start over? Cindy, what do you think about that?
Well, I think the things that are easiest to fix are generally heads and rears. I think you can length the leg off in one generation if you select a low partner to go with it. Feet, I think you can fix potentially in one breeding. I think that fronts, which are one of the most important thing, which is the most important thing really going for breed type and structure on a dachshund. You may not always get that in one generation if you don't have it back behind the dogs you're using. So what I would have to consider scrapping is if I had, say I brought in a bitch that didn't have as much forechest as I demand on my personal breedings here. If I went at her a couple, 3 directions with, various stud dogs that I could breed her to, and I couldn't get a front out of her, she would get the gate. But what I definitely would throw out beyond that, which I'm not sure this was the intention of your questions, is health problems. If you get a health problem, second generation, you got to, really consider what you do from there. And maybe go 100% a different direction. But this is where, when you're breeding, there are degrees of discretion that impact long-term, and some things are less of a big deal. But health and temperament, not sure which one I would put first. Health and temperament, you just almost can't forgive it the second generation.
Excellent. Chris, what about you? You want to?
Yeah. I don't know if you can really change something overnight. I think maybe you've been working on it for a while and all of a sudden, poof, there it is in the litter. So I don't know if it's really being changed overnight. When I started, my dachshunds had short ears, and that was one thing that always bugged me. Their ears were too short. So I started working on the ears, and then seems like poof, overnight I had the ears that I wanted. So I don't know if it happens overnight. Like the good heads, strength of underjaw. I was working on underjaw with my dogs, and I got it, and I just was still breeding the same way, and all of a sudden I had way too much underjaw. I had all these, overshot underjaws coming up, all this. So I don't know if it happens overnight. Again, like health issues, I think all that stuff is in a dachshund. Is it really happening overnight, or have you finally done the right breeding that's brought it forward that you've been working on? So maybe it does. I don't know. And I've always heard that about rears, that they're the easiest thing to improve. But I could tell you, I'm very fortunate here. I started with very good rears. I haven't had a problem with rears. I always thought they were so easy. Well, my friend Catherine and I decided to try to bring a dilute dachshund into the show ring. And we started with these pet quality, because that's where you had to get the color. And they all had straight stifles and everything else. I thought, oh, we could change that in a generation. 5 generations later, And I think this last breeding, because she's got that program over there, I think this last breeding, which would be 6 generations later, they finally have the bend stifle that you're supposed to get. I think we are blessed with good rears in our dachshunds overall, the really nice dogs that I've seen. So I don't know about approving a bad rear, because I don't have them here, and I'm the same way I won't breed to a bad front. I don't think I'd breed to a bad rear. And then as far as the other issue about health and temperament, you're darn right. I mean, I've got a certain temperament I'm looking for. If I get a crazy dog, it's like, what is that? And then if it happens again, that's it. We're not doing that again. Same with a major health issue. It would have to be major. And I'd have to see a pattern. If I had a whole litter of something, I would never repeat that breeding again. But if there was one dog in the litter that had something. If I did a repeat of that breeding and the same issue turned up again in another dog in the second litter, I would probably take that one out of the breeding program. I like to see a pattern before I eject something from the breeding program. And currently I'm looking at two things here that I'm keeping an eye on to see if there's going to be a pattern developing. And, we'll see if there's a pattern, if I can test for certain things, and then I do. I don't hold much stock in the DNA tests that are out there, to be honest with you, because I was involved with that development of the Cord1 test. But yeah, temperament and a serious health issue.
Thank you, Chris. Valeria, what about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I will divide it in two. I will say one things are cosmetic things, the other ones are structural things. In terms of like cosmetic things, I will say like eye shape, you could improve in one generation. Heads, probably better feet. So you breed to a good dog that has good feet, you're gonna get good feet. The thing is finding a dog that has beautiful cat, very short toes. That's almost difficult because you don't see many. So it's easy to fix, but it's easy to find the guy you're gonna breed to improve those things. Things that are more difficult to improve, I will say top lines. You have messed up top lines. To improve them, it could take you a couple of generations. The fundamental of our breed, which when you judge a dachshund, what goes the more weight in the judging, the front. Improve a front could take you probably 20 something years, and then you do a mistake, you lose it like this in one breeding. So it's like to improve that formula of degrees and angles, into scapula, upper arm, dimensions of bones, and the rears, those equally length three bones there to create the correct movement and breed type that our dachshund should have, is difficult to improve in one generation, but very easy to lose them if you make a mistake and you don't do a breeding that will be focused in keeping what you have. Other thing will be like the tail sets and croups, and the relationship with the scapula. I think is something that we're losing in the breed, and it's the motor that motivates, or the propulsion of the dachshund on the floor. We see all these dogs that you see them on the table. They look good. They have this good upper arm, this huge chest that you have, and then when you put them on the floor, they don't move. It's because they are not equally proportional, the front and the rear. They are not equal in proportion. So there's things that you have to really touch to find them, and you know that, Lexa, because you're a judge. You have to go and touch them. You could not breed to a dog thinking you're going to improve just because you see a picture. You need to see how the dog moves. You have to touch those parts if you really want to improve in these aspects. And finding individuals that are going to improve and help in that when you're going to do an outcross is very difficult, because honestly, all we could see are pictures. So that's why you need to go to the nationals. You need to go and see the dogs live. Don't trust in a picture. This is serious. What we're doing is the fundamentals of the breed. We need to improve those scapulas. We need to improve those croups, those tail sets, and not by a picture you're gonna get a dog or this magic dog that will improve your breeding program. You have to work for that and keep the work going.
I think another thing too that's really important, just to kind of touch on what you guys said, is that for newer people, I think sometimes they don't understand that when they're trying to improve something that is easier to fix in a generation, like a head or a foot or bone or something like that, that you go find that dog that you need that from, but you can't give up all the other parts and pieces. You can't give up the long upper arm and the layback and, the bend to stifle just to add in bone or just to add in a head. Those dogs that you go to have the same attribute, that are still good and solid and what calls it a dachshund, and not just think that your dog is good enough and strong enough to go get bone from this dog that doesn't have any good attributes at all. And I've seen new people make that mistake a lot. I
Well,
think
I forgot something.
Mhm.
Another thing is the keels and the ribbings. The shape of the ribs is very important in our breed. And I see a lot of breeders that they breed for a certain type, but then they keep some of the individual that even when they are puppy, you see the shape of the ribs that are not gonna expand to the rear. You know, and they keep them and they use them on the breeding program. If you consistently have this dog, it doesn't matter how beautiful they look, they are not gonna be a true example of the breed in terms of that characteristic that we're talking, you know, the ribs and the big rib cage, the shape and the keel. I think we have to be very critical. And Chris and Cindy, we all have gone through this. It doesn't matter how pretty a dog looks or how according to that breed type, that idea we have, how pretty it is. If it has a fault like that, that is so difficult to improve, I think we all think it twice if we're gonna keep it or not. It's like when I pose a pet, you know, like people contact me in private. Why are you selling it? It's beautiful. Look at the breed type. Look at the chest. I'm like, you know, do I have to tell you? You're supposed to know. Look at the ribbing. Look at the keel. You know, that's not something I want to keep for the breeding program. It doesn't matter. I could finish him. He could finish, but I don't want another champion. I want a better dachshund.
Mhm. Thank you so much. Anybody
Right.
want to add to that, Chris?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Ribbing is real important. And I was losing my ribbing here. So I had to go look for that. You know, I use a partial outcross. I had to go look for that partial outcross dog. And he was an old dog. And he was sired by one of my dogs, but his dam was out of Canada, Abitibi bitch. And I knew she had really good ribbing because she had been at my house to be bred to my dog. And it's Terry Carr's hall dog, Barack. Champion Tutor goes, yes, we can. So I got to breed to that dog. I don't know if he was 9 or 10. Terry let him come here, and I bred my bitch to him there. And I thought he would pull the ribbing back out that I was losing. And this goes with correcting things over time and knowing what's behind your dogs. And you know, he did it. I got my ribbing back. It's not overnight, to be honest to God, but it sure seemed like it. It came back after I bred to that dog. You know, so
Right.
ribbing's real important.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Cindy, go ahead.
What I was going to say on all these subjects that are being discussed is that we're making specific decisions to select for or against something.
Yep.
And you've got to select to fix it, because if you're just breeding two, I'm going to pick on fronts because it seems to be prevalent. If you're breeding consistently bad fronts together,
Yep.
I can assure you, you're not magically going to get what you're after in your whelping box. You have got to select for the virtue or against the fault in the whelping box. That's where it starts, when you make that decision to pair those two animals together.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really good point, you know, to look for the virtues and see where those dogs are. And sometimes you have to really search them out. Sometimes they're not in the show ring. The best
Right.
not always in the ring. Sometimes they're in somebody's backyard. And that's where it really comes in, knowing your pedigrees and your lines and your people. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, and also remembering dogs that were out there that, you know, may be older now, and contact their breeder and say, hey, you know, is that dog still viable? Can I get to him? And stuff like that. Paying attention, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping a notebook. I know somebody keeps them on like recipe cards or a spreadsheet in your computer just to kind of keep up, you know, or a notebook full of pedigrees, whatever your system is, you know, to keep up with that. But you've got to do your research out on that. And we've touched on this just with that conversation, but I'll put this question out there just if there's anything you want to add. What do you think some of the problem areas of our breed are in today in the ring that you're seeing consistently now? What are some of the things we need to work on? Cindy?
Well, we definitely need to be more mindful of fronts. I mean, I'm sorry to keep saying it, but long, low level and that Dachshund front are like hallmarks of the breed. And it's just so important to preserve that and do what we can to improve it. And the other thing that I see a lot just in general is just lack of breed type. And I think this all goes back to raising the bar about whether or not you want to just finish a dog, have another champion, or do you want to have a dog that your peers are, jealous of, remark to you, they like it. You want to have that specimen that everybody wants to have, that kind of quality on the end of their lead. And again, that doesn't happen by an accident either. But the essence of the Dachshund, you got to select for it to get it. And to do that, you've got to do your homework and study and know what it is. And, heads and eyes, for one thing, on some miniatures are still a battle. Not for everybody, but for some. And it's like, what are you going to be content with? Or what are you going to do to move forward and learn how to make better choices and select for what you need to get to where you want to be?
Okay, Chris, what do you think? What are you seeing out there in the ring?
Well, my biggest complaint, and people know it because I talk about it all the time, is that they're too tall. The miniature dachshunds are way too tall these days. They're getting taller. And then soon they're going to start breeding those tall dogs together, and they'll probably be even taller. That's a thing that can be corrected relatively easy, though. And then there's another thing that's bothering me that I'm seeing creeping in, and it's the lack of underjaw. I saw that happen with the standard dachshunds in the early 90s, and it became such a big thing with standard dachshunds. So pay attention, miniature breeders, to your underjaw. It's got to be a strong underjaw. It's part of the breed. They've got to grasp their prey and pull it out of the hole. But there's something more insidious that's coming up, and it has to do with the front. And it's called the wrap. Our dachshunds are supposed to be wrapped. And we're seeing lovely, long upper arm and good layback of shoulder, but we're not seeing the wraparound front. At least I'm not. Perhaps y'all are out there. I'm not seeing the wraparound front that they're supposed to have. Now, back in the late 80s and early 90s, dog show classes were huge. And in winters, the judge always had us present fronts. That meant you turned your dog to the judge, everybody's in a line, and he could check out the wrap on your front. It doesn't have an oval chest. Are those legs wrapped around it? That's something that I think is going to be hard to get back once it's lost, because it involves curved bones, and people are breeding for straight bones these days. And if you don't start trying to get it back now, it's going to be a real struggle to get that wrap back. Like I said, you see all these wonderful pictures, side pictures of these dogs with these great layback and everything, but when you see them from the front coming at you, it's like, what is that? That really worries me. The wrap on the dachshund's worrying me.
Okay, Valeria, what about you? What are some of the things you're seeing in the ring today?
I think that what Cindy and Chris said is very important, and it goes to the same reason. And I already stated, you have to go to the dog shows, you have to go to the nationals, your nationals of your breed, see the dogs moving. So you're gonna select that dog that you want to breed in the future. You study what the tendency of the breed is, and yes, you're losing these fronts that are supposed to be wrapped. You're gonna see that nice, like Chris says, the nice upper arm and layback. But when you see them coming from the front, it's another story. This is because of we all are trusting in pictures. You need to see those dogs moving. You need to move them. You need to see them, study them. Don't breed to the flavor of the month just because it's winning. Just because I have had some of my best structured dogs come from dogs bred by me that I have placed in pet homes, and I have let people to let me breed to them, or at least have a litter from them. you don't have to be a champion to produce something that is going to be worth for the breed. It's in the genetics, it's not in the titles. Study your breed, study your structure, and don't trust in pictures. Just go and see them live, see what they have to offer, and you will see that it could be deceiving or it could be encouraging to breed to certain dogs.
Chris, you mentioned that you thought the dogs were getting taller. What do you think about the size of some of the miniatures today? It's 11 pounds and under. Do you find that some of them are getting over that? Is that a concern for you at all?
Well, here's the thing. When I came into it, miniature dachshunds were 10 pounds. And, okay, we had nice dogs at 10 pounds. Then when they did the standard revision in 1992, the National Miniature Dachshund Club was pushing for separation, but they put this 11-pound increase in there as kind of a, what's the word? Pacifier, because they wanted that also. So I didn't know what to do. It was 1992. I'd only been, really actively showing since 89. So I'm still in this learning phase. Well, I'm still in learning phase. So I called Ada McCord. She was the president of NMDC at the time. And I said, well, what should we do? What do you want me to do on this? Because I didn't know enough to make an informed decision. And she said, go ahead and vote yes, because 11 pounds is fine. Okay. So I used to be, and everybody evolves over their lifetime. I used to be this radical person. They must be separated. They must be separated. I am no longer that person. I'm happy with the size of my miniatures. I treasure those 9-pound bitches that I get in here that are just gorgeous, because I come from that era that we really treasured those real tiny bitches. I like them. I think if you're consistently showing large ones, back up a little bit and try to get your size down. But the way the best miniatures were bred, they come down from standard dachshunds. Well, they all do. So you are always going to have the whoppers show up, but those whoppers can in turn produce the tinies. So to me, it's okay to have that one class for 11 pounds and under, because anything else, larger or smaller, can go in the other classes. And I tend to put my real tiny ones in the Ambred class, because that class used to be just for huge, oversized miniatures. And I like to put my tiny ones in there to confuse the judge. It's my weird sense of humor.
Cindy.
That's actually why I raised my hand a second ago, is I wanted to bring this up, because while I've never been a 100% stickler for size, I'm seeing definitely a trend, not only in a couple of cases sitting in my kennel that I don't like. It's like it's a bigger miniature than what I want.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of even bigger than that all over the place in the show. And I mean, there's a place for everything, but I don't want our miniatures to end up being, well, what's it supposed to be? And to me, more so than just the pound, because of the weight, because that can vary so much, how much the bone dog's got, etc. Is I want to be able to look at it and go, yep, it's a miniature. Mm-hmm. And when you get above 12-ish, 13-ish, even maybe, if you want to put a number on it, then you can't just look at it across the ring and say, that's a miniature. It's like when you have to stop and think. For me, like, my litmus test is when I look at it and I immediately know it's a miniature, it's good enough for me. But when I look at it and I go, what's it supposed to be? Then that's too big. And I just think it's, like you said, Chris, it's something for us to be mindful of. Those bigger miniatures have a place. They have things they can contribute. Like you said, sometimes you're surprised at how little their puppies mostly are.
Yeah.
But I just want everybody to maybe put a little thought into that. How much is, you should be asking yourself, how big is too big? Because we don't weigh on. The miniature is only a miniature in the open miniature class that is under 11 pounds at 12 months or older. But I think it's something to also keep your finger on.
Chris?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Cindy, because I have a beautiful dog out here right now. He's absolutely gorgeous. He's got a major on him. But I look at him and say, you're too big. I'm not breeding to you. and I know his pedigree and everything, but it's because I'm a miniature breeder in my mind. He's got to be smaller than he is for me to breed to. He's a gorgeous dog, and but he needs to go. I'm not going to breed to him, as a matter of fact, but he needs to go into a pet home. That's where I'm putting him. But he's absolutely gorgeous. However, I will say this to me, and this is Cindy was talking about size. When she looks at one, she wants to make sure it's. I know that's a miniature. I know that's a standard. I take all my pictures of my dogs without usually a reference, without people in the picture. And I don't want anybody to know. I want them to look the same. But the size difference that Cindy's talking about, I totally agree with. You should be able to tell when they're next to each other which one's miniature, which one's standard. When they're taken in a crop picture, I like people to wonder.
Well, I think that's a good point. Valeria, do you want to add to that about the size?
Yes, I agree. I think there has to be, like in everything, there has to be a control, there has to be a limit, there has to be a size, because that's why our dogs are miniatures. But breeding, it's another thing. You have to make wise decisions. And I think the key word here is balance. Is your criteria, is like not every case is the same. I am not afraid of breed to a big dog. If it's a line breeding on my stuff, I will be a little bit more concerned, because then I'm like, okay, where those genes came from, I'm gonna double and I'm gonna bring it, and I'm gonna start breeding bigger dogs. But if the dog is an outcross, I take the chance, because breeding to dogs that are maybe between 12, 13, probably 14, will give you substance, breed type, a whole gamma of characteristics that when you're drafting, making them little, you lose, because of making a size little, you lose some of that breed type. So you just refresh and bring a little bit more of bone, but you don't line breed on that. You just bring it in and then you continue with your focus size. But yes, I think there should have a division, a separation. Minis should look like minis in terms of size, not like breed. They're supposed to look exactly as standards. You see a picture of a mini, you see a picture of a standard, you shouldn't be able to distinguish which is a standard and which one is a mini. They should look alike. But in size, there should be a difference, yes.
Cindy?
And I just wanted to reiterate what they're saying, what they both said, is I didn't mean as far as a dachshund. A dachshund should just look like a great dachshund should just look like a great dachshund, no matter the size. I mean, from point of reference of how big are these animals getting, if I can't look at it, whether it's in my kennel and I'm being, real with myself, or it's out in the ring or being special or whatever, and you sit in the ring and you're like, well, what is that supposed to be? And maybe I know it's supposed to be a miniature. And then there's been times that I've had to go look and see, and it just happened to be one of those obscure, doesn't happen very often, extra small standards. But if you have to look, both are incorrect. In my opinion, that's that no man's land of size that I don't think we should necessarily be wanting. For me, is particularly if you're a miniature breeder. I guess if you're a standard breeder and you choose to breed small standards, that's your business. But I mean, they're miniature. Miniature should mean something.
Yes.
In the size department. Not in the type department, in the size department.
Yeah. Valerio?
Totally agree. And another thing that we haven't mentioned is that we have judges coming from other parts of the world where the standards are not as big as the standard we have in our country, and the minis are a little bit bigger. So when you see they have the lineup, I'm like, trying to get into their heads. Like he must be thinking, is this a standard of a mini? What I'm judging, it's probably too big. It's like it has to be a difference, because that makes the judge also make wiser decisions when they are from international judges. So they know what they are judging.
Right. And I think some of the confusion, I know me being a standard breeder and also a judge, when I have minis in my ring, they may be small in stature, and that's definite miniature, but look like a standard, but they've got the bone and substance that might put them over 11 pounds. And I don't ever discount that because it's so hard to get the bone and the substance in a dog that small. That's so, correct. So for me as a judge, I don't really ding on how heavy they feel, but they're still in a small package. There's a difference in between looking at a 14 or 15 pound oversized mini that doesn't have the bone or, those typical attributes of what we're looking at. So, for newer people, I think they get that confused sometimes and put that dog on the scale and go, oh, well, they're over, they've got to go. And,
Well, let me just say this. A big mistake beginners make also is they're over, let's not feed them. And, so then they take a very skinny, unconditioned dog into the ring. You feed the dog up to what his weight is supposed to be.
yeah.
Please.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you said that because that's one of my pet peeves of a mini or a standard is to see dogs walk in the ring with little toothpick legs. I hate that. They're supposed to be diggers and go to ground. How do you do that with little teeny tiny legs? I don't know what they do. Excellent. Thank you guys. Let's go to, let's talk about color and patterns. We don't see so much of this in standards. We see it in minis quite frequently in, all the different varieties. And so how do you think we should educate people and judges on colors and patterns in these miniature dachshunds?
Well, I think that colors and patterns are fairly well covered in the standard. I would refer everybody to the standard, and then that's when if you don't understand, like, okay, for example, the new standard includes piebalds. If you were really having problems grasping that, then I would go to a piebald breeder like obviously Sandy Russell or Laura Abbott or anybody else that's breeding piebalds. But I think wasn't there another part of your question about classes? About class?
Yeah, somebody had asked once upon a time, should DCA split the pattern and the color dogs away from the solids?
Well, I would say, first off, that's a question for the board, but second off, I wouldn't think that it's necessary up until the point that we have so many, whatever. Like, we've got class of 20 chocolates or a class of 20 piebalds in a particular coat. Then maybe you don't want to have, and that's an exaggeration based on like how they do with Aussies. But yeah, I did have that to say about that. I don't think we're there. I don't know if we'll ever be there, but for now, I think what we've got is sufficient, and I think we have a standard that covers things pretty well.
Okay. Chris, what do you think about anything?
Yeah, I agree with Cindy. The whole color thing, it's been going on for a long time. The really good pattern dogs have been out there, the really good ones. The whole purpose of separating these open classes was, remember, the miniatures came in here at 9 pounds, and the board of DCA at the time, I guess, felt they were at a disadvantage. So they split the open class to give the miniature dachshund one more look in the ring. The pattern dogs don't need that. They're gorgeous. And our shows, the classes are getting smaller and smaller. So there's no reason to add another class, especially those pattern dogs. Sandy Russell, my goodness. Her dogs are gorgeous. Melissa Kessler still has beautiful piebalds out there. Laura Abbott's taken up the banner. They don't need another class. Just my opinion.
Oh,
the judges might need more education, but that's on DCA and their judges education department.
Right. Well, I think it's what Cindy says. Go read the standard. And
Exactly.
if you're not sure, go find somebody that knows the answers.
Exactly.
Valeria, what about you?
Well, talking about colors and patterns, today is Sandy Russell's birthday, so happy birthday.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
Yes.
happy birthday.
So, yeah, I think like Cindy said, every color and pattern is covered on the standard, so there shouldn't be any doubt about it. I think that a dachshund should win not because it's color. I think a dachshund should win because of its qualities according to a written standard. The judge should go over the structure. The judge should check the temperament, conformation, movement, etc., and not the color. That doesn't mean that now because piebbles are accepted, they have to win because they are piebbles over dogs that are solid, that have better structure. I think that this is like, you know, when we say may the best dachshund win. The best dog in the ring should win. It doesn't matter if Valerio is showing and doesn't know what he's doing and he's judging the dog, he's showing the dog, or my beautiful handler Angela Lloyd is showing the dog, or his assistant or whoever. It's not the face that you're gonna judge. It's not the color. It's not nothing but the dog. Judge the dog. That's more important than any color or pattern.
It's only paint. That color pattern is only paint on the
structure, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's cosmetic. It's totally cosmetic. The structure is the most important thing in our breed, because it's a structure that is made for a function.
Yeah, it's build your house first and then worry about the paint. You know. Thank you guys for that. Let's go to this question. Should a newbie continue to show a dog they are told will never finish? How do you get experience? This has come up a lot. And one of the reasons I wanted to start the group is, how do you get dogs from people that you want to learn? And let's say maybe you have a few dogs that you're breeding and they're not great, and you know, you might want something better, but people are hesitant to help you. What is your advice on that? What do you think about that?
So the first part of the question is, should you keep showing it?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of the question is, how do you
get something better,
get a chance to move forward? Okay, well, everybody has to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at somebody who took a rose-eared, multi-flawed, black and tan, mini smooth male pet dachshund to George, George, gosh, I just lost his last name, the handler guy that did seminars. George Alston. to his seminar. I didn't actually show that dog, but I think that what you start with what you've got, and you just keep doing your best to learn. And there's other places to learn how to handle besides going to AKC. But if you want to keep showing that dog to learn, then show that dog to learn. There's handling classes, there's matches, there's international shows, there's even UKC shows. So I wouldn't tell them not to show it, and then just keep getting more experience and talking to more people. And as far as getting improvement, I think part of it is just being there and meeting people and being patient and persistent. But for me, I would suggest to anyone, breed your own pick bitch, because that's how you're going to be the one in charge. I've heard a little bit, I have not watched all the videos, but I've heard and seen a little bit of the chatter about people wanting people to sell their pick bitch. Well, we're all small breeders. We're breeding for ourselves first. And, sometimes a pick bitch doesn't end up the best one, or it might not end up being the one that produces the most quality in the whelping box. So get the best that you can, whether you've already got a line of dogs started, then go breed to the animals that have the attributes that you want to improve on, and then poof, you've got your own pick dog. But again, this all goes back to what we talked about earlier about education. If you don't know what you need to improve, then that's where you need to start. What do you need to improve? And when people, I can think of a couple of examples right now of people that stayed in it, were thick-skinned. That's the other thing. If you're not thick-skinned, you're in the wrong breed, because it's tough and competitive, and not everybody's as nice as we are.
Right.
And so just keep showing up. And, you're laughing, Chris. But it's true. It's funny,
I know
it's true. But that's my suggestion, is to, get the best you can, and then do your best to improve it, because you're looking at a panel of people that's what we did. Were any of y'all sold pick bitch? Really?
No.
Back in 1988?
Well, my second one was. That
But
second one
generally,
was.
it doesn't work like that.
No, never.
Okay, Chris, what about you? How do you
Yeah, if somebody wants to keep showing their little dog, then keep showing it. But what they need to do is kind of like what I did. Look around at the dogs in the ring that are beating you. You know, does your dog look like them? And you know, be highly observant. What I did, and I got my things. So I don't have to get up like Bob Bray did. But I kept this notebook from 1989 to 1999 of every class I went into, 10 years of it. And I made notes back in my car and I noted what dogs were there, my impressions, because I'm a real observant person, and I had nobody to bounce off any ideas with. So I had to use my own eye on what was winning. And of course, there I am down there with those gorgeous Georgia Dachshund and Pam and all those beautiful standard Dachshunds. And yeah, keep showing your dog. But if you can look around and see why your dog isn't winning, you know, maybe it's your own fault for not handling it correctly, but probably not. It probably is your dog. And then don't get discouraged, because you're learning how to handle, hopefully, at the same time. You got to go to handling class. You got to get people to help you handle. What else did I put? Oh, and once you've decided that, you know, I've got to get a better dog, this is where you've got to start approaching people. But approach, I would say approach quietly. You know, show you're interested. Be present to the breeders, because we know you're there, because we've been seeing you come to shows. If we're out there actively showing our dogs, we notice you. We see you come back and back, and then we see you try a different dog and come back. I approached somebody one time because I'd seen her. She'd been out there for a year with these little dogs, and I knew she was serious because she was spending all this money showing these dogs. So I approached her and said, you know, I've got a really nice little dog. It was a male. It wasn't a bitch. That I said that you might do well with. And, you know, and so she was all excited and, you know, got him from me, and she finished him. So it was her first champion, and he's back here now because she unfortunately died. But, you know, maybe go with a dog before a bitch, just to give you a little bit of boost, you know, in your confidence in the show ring too.
Great, thanks. Valeria, what about you? What do you think?
Well, it is very delicate because when you're starting in something, there could be a lot of, you know, feelings involved with this little dog that you have. But if you want to do this, you, like Cindy said, you have to have a tough skin. I think there's nothing wrong of being ignorant in something. What is wrong is if you want to pursue being ignorant and you don't want to learn. If you want to learn, you have to, you know, go down one step and then stand up again and move on. Knock on doors. You need to start with something. You need to learn. So go ahead and show this dog or this bitch or whatever. If it's a dog, it's more difficult because, you know, you could not improve. You will not find somebody that will give you a better bitch to breed to him. So if you start with a bitch, where then try to breed it and see if you could have something better. Knock on doors, ask for help. Don't worry if you get a no. That happens to me every day. We've been breeding for, I don't know, 27, 30 years. If one door closes, 10 will open. So keep your faith, keep your willing to learn, and just move on and try to do it the best you can and learn, and try to set your feelings apart to certain dog and be in love with the breed on how to improve it, and that will lead you to a brighter future.
Thank you. In your opinion, everybody, what was the dog that you bred or used in your program that made the most impact?
For me, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about could not wait, reading all my books. I've got all the old periodicals, could not wait every month for NMDC magazine to show up, because back in our day, we didn't have the internet. We couldn't go Google up all these international kennels and all these people, you know, posting on Facebook who's showing in our country or you know, in Canada or wherever. It was old school. It was books. It was going to shows. It was talking to people. And it was, for a miniature breeder, it was that Miniature Dachshund magazine that came in. It wasn't even every month, wasn't it? Every other month back then?
I think it was every month. I think
Was it every month?
Yeah.
I think it was every 2 months.
I was thinking there for a while it was only every 2 months, but regardless.
Yeah, it was every 2 months.
Right. I still have mine.
So finally, I do too, plus all the ones I bought from everybody. So finally, I saw a dog that filled my eye that, and this happened twice, thanks to the mini digest. One was Champion Syndicates Just Like That, Arnie, who was a Bojangles son that I bred to a few times. And the other was Mary Lou Floro's Champion Taliesin Charles in Charge that I bred to a couple of times, I think. And those dogs have a very similar profile of what I had in my mind's eye of what a dachshund was supposed to look like, but in 1980-ish, early 1990, finding that in a miniature smooth. Also, I was looking for black and tan, I will admit, was, well, I mean, it is what it is, was no small feat. So there you go. I had to name both of those two dogs because they were very influential. And then when you go back to talking about people that you admire in the past, you dial in on those pedigrees, and they go back to the dog, one particular dog behind Wavecrest, which was that Champion Joy Docs Ricochet of
Nicobar. Yeah.
The Nicobar dog and the Wavecrest dogs, and some of those Joy Docs dogs were so ahead of their time as far as that outline and that profile in a miniature dachshund.
Okay. Chris, what about you? What is a dog you bred or used in your program that really changed things for you?
Well, I'm going to mention a couple because the one that changed the direction of my program was Paw Prince Primetime. He's the one that really I got the look that I wanted. I bought one of his sons in here, but when it came time to breed, you know, again down the line, I needed something else, and I bred this dog, and I bred him to a dog that Laura Abbott had. Laura had a breed down. He was a black and tan dog. Pedal pusher, Jumping Juniper.
Jumping Juniper.
Jumping Juniper was his name. Very extreme dog, but I had this plain bitch that I needed. I wanted to breed her to him, and I needed a red dog at my own place out of that breeding. So I did, and that's when the most influential dog entered here, and that was Champion Crisscross Starting to Riot. That's when he was born, from that breeding. That dog, he turned into a prepotent sire. He had all these attributes that were wonderful. So he was my game-changing dog. But then I brought this game-changing bitch in here. I brought her sight unseen, pedigree only. You know, I didn't buy her off phenotype. I brought her off pedigree only. I hadn't seen her. Kevin Payne had a litter for sale up there in Pennsylvania, I think he was living at the time. And he printed the pedigree in the National Miniature Digest. I saw the pedigree and contacted him, and I said, I want a bitch out of that pedigree, out of that litter you had. And eventually she made her way to me, and she walked out of the crate in my living room, because he said, I don't know if she's show or not. You know, I think she was 4 or 5 months old. But I opened up her crate in the middle of my living room, and she walked out. I said, holy smokes, Kevin. Yes, she's quality. She's going in the ring. But not only was I bought her for my breeding program. It's always, I buy them for my breeding program. If they're good enough to show, if I think they're good enough to go into the ring, I'll take them into the ring. Well, she was good enough to go into the ring and then some. But her real value was in the whelping box. She was just gold. She was genetic gold. Her children and grandchildren, they're all my dogs go back to those two. When you look at my pedigrees, if you can go back far enough now, it's those two that really changed everything as far as consistency and look here. Yeah, those two.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Valeria, what about you? What's a dog that you've bred or used in your program that's made a difference for you?
Well, basically, from the dogs that we have already mentioned, we had Paw Prince Prime Time and the Paw Prince line. Um, Going through after that line is how I find the Sims. And I got this dog from them that was champion Sims with them, Charlie. I got him. I think he had only one champion, and I made him a an ROMX. He was kind of tricky to breed because he will not breed to any bitch and produce the type that I want. But it was the kind of dog that when you breed down the road, the second generation, you will have this grandfather effect. And having him in my pedigrees, and the more I see him on the backbone, on the back of my pedigree, it gives me more confidence because it guarantees me that I have that support that I needed. In my breeding program in terms of the structure, things that he will not produce with any bitch. I see it born very often from his grandchildren. Another case, and that's something that really helped me a lot, and I have to thank Chris for that. I'm a very fair person. I give honor to what deserves the honor. It's a Charlie grandson or great grandson. It's Chris bred to a dog that I produced that was Sunrise Guardian and produced Sway. Sway changed everything here because it bring out a gamma or a new group of genes from the outcross of her work and all the dogs that she mentioned from her program. And at the same time, I was doing a line breeding in Charlie with my own dog. So it just clicked perfectly. My sweet sons and my grandsons of him are just producers. Our dogs that consistently stamp what I'm looking for. It doesn't mean that they are perfect. They all have their little improvement, like cosmetic details, but we're working on that. And having him now give me the same confidence that Charlie gave me at the beginning. So it is a fabulous dog. He has never been sick. He's 14. He has puppies on the ground. I could not ask nothing more from him. It's Chris meant to be. And his sons produce just as him. It's something incredible. That's a dog. Charlie, primetime Charlie and Suede. If you see on his pedigree, it's a lineup of producing sires that have stamped basically the type in my kennel. So thank you, Chris.
Well, thank you. I'd like to say something about that if I could, Lexa.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the reason I bred to his dog's name was Guardian. I was at a dog show, and this is what I want you people to pay attention to. I was at a very large specialty up in Columbus, Indiana, and Cliff and Robbie were there with this red dog, Guardian, and they also had a black and tan dog. This red dog caught my eye. Remember, I'm always looking at dog shows, and I really, really liked him. And after the shows were over and I was back home, and everybody kept saying, "Did you see the black and tan dog? Did you see the black?" And I said, "No." "Did you see the red dog?" "That's the red dog." And I looked at his pedigree when I got home and I thought, oh, that just might work. I had a beautiful red bitch that I was looking for somebody to breed to. But I thought the dog had gone back to Puerto Rico or South Florida. And I was at the Alabama Specialties and Claudette Rowe walked into the ring with that little red dog, Guardian. And I think was he Sunrise Adsims Guardian? Was that his name, Valerio?
Yeah. Sunrise
Adsims Guardian. She walks in the ring with Guardian. And I was like, there's that dog. And so I got to breed to him, but that is because I was looking at dog shows at other dogs. And this is a big, beautiful specialty. So people need to pay attention what's in the ring. Spend less time maybe chatting and watch the dogs in the ring to see there might be something out there that would complement what you have.
I think that's a really good point, because sometimes where you get so preoccupied with switching dogs or seeing everybody you're talking that I try really hard to watch what's going on in the ring, because if not, I'll miss it.
Well,
I'm here. What am I doing?
yeah, let me say something.
Go ahead, Chris.
New people make that mistake. The other thing, because I don't know if it was in these questions or not, and I wanted to say this, when you decide to get serious about a dachshund, a miniature dachshund, pick one coat to start with. Don't try to do all three. There's many people out there
Absolutely.
that are coming from the pet side of things, and they've got all three coats and they want to show all three coats. Pick one coat and become very, very good in that coat before you branch out. You know, that's a big piece of advice I have for beginning people. Pick one coat, become good in that coat.
I think that's great advice.
Yep.
I think that's really good advice. We have just 2 or 3 questions on the feed that I've kind of seen. If you get one puppy that comes close to being what you're looking for out of a litter of 4 or 5, don't disperse. Do you consider that a successful breeding or a fluke?
If you get one puppy to move forward with, praise the Lord.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Not every puppy in the litter is going to be hitting the jackpot. So absolutely, that is something to move forward with. It could be a fluke or not. If it came out of 2 ugly dogs, it was a fluke. If you selected traits and you got at least part of what you wanted, it was a success.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
need one.
That's all you need is one. And if you're breeding for yourself, one will do it, man. You should be ecstatic you got one in there. You know, the rest of them, that always surprises me too. But again, you people don't know this. They want entire litters to be show dogs. Well, good luck with that. Even 30 years later, you know, you get your one good one in there. That's gold. Take it.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And
Yes, I think every dog in the litter is not gonna be show quality. You know, some people think that everything they produce is gonna be shown and finished. I don't think that's the idea in breeding. If it will be like that, it will be very easy. But you know, there are breedings that you do that the tendency or the ratio of show dogs could determine if it's a really nice breeding, if it's a fluke, like you said. If I have only one puppy out of 5 or 6, I will say, well, it's a fluke, you know, something good out there, click and bring out this good individual. I will go forward in another direction next time. I think that out of a litter of 4 or 5, at least 2 should be nice, 3, you know, not everything, like half, or, you know, a reasonable ratio, which will guarantee that there's a good genetic solid background back there. You know, it's not, I don't think that breeding for just one puppy good in the litter should be the direction to go. I think we all pursue to have quality of individuals that represent the look that we want to stamp in the whelping box.
well, I'm sure you guys, as you know, being long-term breeders, have run into where everything looks great on paper, everything looks good on the phenotype, genotype, and you do a breeding and nothing turns out. You know, have you run into that where you've like, I'm not really jumping up and down about this litter, and kind of scrap it and do a different breeding?
That's just part of the challenge of being a breeder. I'm not going to say that every litter I have, do I get what I want? I mean, maybe I'm after something specific and it just didn't quite get there. But that goes back to, you know, selecting for and against. And let's all remember what, Pat Hastings always told us in her seminars. Pick of a litter of crap is still just that. So you got to set your bar on what you're going to move forward. I would like to also, on the flip of what we were saying about only having one in the litter to move forward with, the other side of that is not everything that's a champion should go into the breeding arena. Not every champion is breeding quality. There is such a disparity between what can finish and what should be bred, and all that goes back to education. Chris?
Totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree.
Excellent. If we've got any more.
Totally agree too.
Somebody's dogs are barking.
Yeah, today's Sunday. We have the people from the church coming to the door, to the gate.
Uh-oh.
And my neighbor decided to do the lawn. Everything had happened today.
Everything's going on. Can you put some emphasis on breeding a bitch to different males, not always repeating the breeding? I'm not exactly sure what that's maybe asking. I don't know. How many times do you like to repeat versus trying a different stud each time?
I almost never repeat. I have almost never had a repeat breeding, and this goes early on. Almost never got something better the second time. I'm not a big repeat breeder. I think that, you know, pairing with different stud dogs and seeing how, you know, where the improvement is or where you might go back. And then I tend to let the cream rise to the top with breedings out of, say, a particular bitch, or even the stud dog is like, might hold one back from one breeding, but if I do a breeding a year, 18 months later, and that one is so much better than the first one, then the first one gets the gate and I keep the better one. You know, because I like to refer to that cream rising to the top, because if you are doing it like that, you're churning your decisions in what you keep and what you let go, then it does. With the idea that, you know, you're able to get something better. Depends on how good that first one you kept back was.
Right.
Because it's easier to make progress from down here to up here. What's really hard is to maintain up here and then getting all that stuff that's hard to achieve.
Right.
You know, because it's one step forward, two steps back a lot of the times. For me, anyway.
Chris, what do you think about that, repeating breedings?
I've done lots of it, simply because I had several prepotent sires here and prepotent bitches. It all goes back to that magical combination of Lexi and Riot all those years ago. We repeated that breeding 3 times, I think. She never had big litters. She had 3 each time, and we also used her we bred her to another stud, a dapple stud, to just
Justin's weight, remember?
Well, Lexi came down from her daughter, but I do repeat breedings because I've had prepotent sires here. If I breed a bitch to a dog and I get a mediocre litter, I won't repeat that breeding, because she's shown you what she's going to do with that. You know, go to something else. And I like to take my good bitches and I like to try them on different dogs. But if I get something fantastic, I'll do it again. And that can always backfire on you. That very first litter that I had that produced Crisscross Prima Girl, she was fantastic, happened so early in my breeding career, I repeated that breeding. Not a show dog in the next litter at all. You know, so you take a chance, but I do it.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right.
My personal experience has been, I've just, you know.
I got you. Yeah. Totally understand. Yeah.
I believe that if you make a combination and it clicks and it works, and you get that lucky that you have 3 or 4 puppies that are going to be finishable, and they are nice puppies. I have a phrase that says you don't change a winning combination. Do it again. And if you get it again, do it again. I'm sorry. If you do it again and you have good puppies out of that litter, do it again. I have some cases here that I will say are like the eternal wife and husband. they are bred together until 2 or 3 litters, because the results are fantastic. So if I could create individuals and put them in wise homes, and then I will experiment with the different kids and go in different directions, that will give me a whole variety of possibilities. But if I breed a bitch, I only get one, then I'll obviously try another sire in the next breeding, because I want, like I said before, we want more. We want quality. We're after something. We are able to try different combinations to see if we get that. Right. That dog that will click with this certain bitch.
Okay. Have any of you based your breedings on your bitches rather than males, and why?
Well, for me, I think that my line is a bitch line, and that, well, I wouldn't exactly have like thought of it in that terms.
Yeah.
I do think that my bitches are pretty dominant, and they tend to show me in the whelping box that, they're going to carry on their good traits, regardless of some of the bitches. And I'm sure that Chris and Valerio could say the same thing, that some bitches, it doesn't matter who you breed them to, they're going to give you the goods. So I think that, picking a stud dog is important, but having those great brood bitches is the seed. That's
Yep.
where, most of what you get in your puppies comes from your brood bitch. The male only contributes a certain amount of what makes up the puppy. And because the bitch does all of the nutrition part and all of the teaching part, but I think that a good producing bitch is definitely worth her weight in gold. And I feel like our breed as a whole is a bitch breed. So if you get a prepotent sire, you've got something, in my opinion.
I'd agree with that. Chris, what do you think about that?
Yeah, bitches are gold. I mean, you get your good bitches. That, and that I'll tell new people, that's why it's very hard to get a really good bitch, because we don't like to let them go. Somebody called me one time wanting a show bitch. They were across the country, and this is how he thought he would get the bitch from me. He promised me he would never breed her. And I said, are you nuts? I mean, these bitches are bred to be bred, that's what they're here for, so yeah, bitches are gold there. And I've been fortunate since that early combination I did. My bitches have been wonderful producers, but I've also been blessed with prepotent stud dogs like Suede. And the reason I sold Suede is I had no more bitches to breed him to. We had used him and he could go on and do something for somebody else. But yeah, bitches, I agree with Cindy. The bitches are the mainstay of our breed. But if you get a prepotent stud dog, that's also something to hold on to.
Valerio?
I think that we all have our bitch line, but how I could put it, you have a bitch line because you have this line of bitches that generation after generation, they contribute to your breeding program in a positive way. But then you need to be wise and know what are the dogs you're gonna keep from those bitches.
Right.
The dogs that will produce what that bitch line that supports him has behind him. What is that genetic strength coming from the bitch? For example, that's why when I send a dog to be shown in the United States, in the mainland, I usually use him, have 2 or 3 litters. I see what he produces. If I like what I see on the whelping box with different bitches, line bred and outcrosses, then I send him to be bred because that's the dog that is worth to keep in my breeding program. But for example, I have dogs that, and you know this, Chris, probably you have a male that produce beautiful bitches, but there isn't a single male you have keep out of him. And there's bitches that usually produce good of both, boys and girls. So it's, I've been blessed, like Chris says, to have bitches that have been nice producers from really nice bloodlines. And I also been blessed on keeping the males that I know are going to be the responsible. In case the bitches fail, he carries the genetic strength of the mother and will be the one that could probably produce me that good male for the future to breed. Because a male could be bred to a lot of bitches, outcross or inbred or line bred. A bitch has only a limited breeding life. So I will say that it's important to have a very nice, solid bitch line, but also the wise to keep the males. A good male is never, how you will say, it's never bad to keep. So you should have room to keep that really nice male that will produce in case the bitch fails, because of the limited quantity of breeding bitches could have versus the male. So I think it's like a balance of both, having a strong, solid bitch line, and then the dog that you keep to as a backup, because he could be bred to more individuals than the bitch itself.
I think
Go ahead.
that's true. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say what he was saying about the males. I mean, nobody's saying that the males aren't of value, but I think that the males do have to prove themselves. In my kennel, if I have a couple, 3 litters from a male and my socks are not being blown off, then he's probably not going to stay there forever. If you have, I had one that was quoted as having the capacity to be bred to a Jenny goat and give you a show dog. Well, that's the dog that lived here his entire life, because it didn't matter what I bred him to, I was going to get something that I was happy with.
Right.
They're not all like that. The bitches tend to just be a little more dependable across the board in quantities. You can have good producing bitches, strong producing bitches easier than you can have that prepotent male.
Yeah.
Probably everybody's going to agree to that. They just aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
in a sense it's easier, but I tell you, it's luck here, because I've gotten these wonderful prepotent males. I've got 3 males here now, 2 males here now. 2, both of them are proving to be prepotent, and it's like, great, it's still going on. So,
Yay.
woohoo! So I keep the males, and the males did save my bloodlines at one point in my breeding career when I lost 3 bitches to different things, and I didn't have a bitch to breed. So Diane Graham lent me a bitch, a smooth bitch out of Hannelore Heller's line, and I had a male here, and I bred her to him and got my line back. So that was very helpful, and that taught me a lesson way back when: is don't, because people are getting rid of their males because they have limited space, and I don't blame them. But that taught me don't get rid of the males, and I keep a lot of males here now, because, well, relatively a lot, but these are all prepotent sires, which I adore.
It's really good to keep a male that you will be like relying the genetic strength on him in case something happened with your bitches.
That's right.
So that's why it's good to keep a good one.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you guys today. We're gonna start wrapping it up here with my very last question, which I've asked on all the panels. What does the future of dachshunds look like? Who are you gonna hand this over to, and what is the vision you think for the future of our breed in this country? Cindy?
Well, I think that that working on education in every potential area that we can, like what we're doing right here and what the parent club is doing and what AKC is doing with in college, all of that is ideally gonna help people get on the right track as far as their education. And I'm an optimist. I hope that we're gonna start seeing an upswing in the quality of competition, and that everybody's gonna be able to improve what they want to do, and that we can have people take over down the line. For me personally, I don't have a exact plan of attack. I'm hoping that there's some young whippersnapper that's going to come out with the fire in their belly that's going to blow me away with what they're doing, that or it may be somebody totally unexpected that comes into my world, but I'm not quite in the retirement phase of my breeding program yet, so I really don't have that's the truth right there. I don't know. How about that?
Right.
But I have hope. I have hope.
I think it sounds good. Chris, what do you think? What does the future of dachshunds look like?
I think it looks pretty good. I see a lot of excited young people coming up with some pretty nice dogs. I've brought a lot of people into the breed. They can take over now, you know, because I am approaching that retirement thing. I'm like Cindy. It's getting a little bit harder for me to get around the show ring. So I think it's going to be good. I just want people to bring them down. They're too tall. Bring them down. They're too tall. Work on the wrap. We're wrapped front. And K-Lad always, the description of the wrapped front in the written standard is the best one I've ever seen. And I would say, look at that written standard and study it, because they did a really good job on that. Really good job. But I think we're in good shape. People just need to pay attention.
Okay. Valeria, what about you? What does the future of dachshunds look like?
I think it's bright. It's there's a lot of new people coming in. I think I think we all have done our work and our homework good. I think we have helped and put our little seed to improve the miniatures. That is seen on the ring. It's not as difficult as it was when we started to win and, you know, against the standards. That keeps the competition going. Now the standards are like, you know, we have to keep the good work going because those minis are getting good. And we always be more in numbers. So, you know, it's kind of disappointing when you see a dog or a standard win when it's not as good as, or when judges forgive the faults on those standards that we're seeing that they will not stand in our minis, and that make us improve. So if that make us improve, make them improve too. So I think we should all keep working toward the improvement of the breed. I think we should work together more, like I will say, like I see in the old world, you know, people share the bloodlines. They go like shopping. I need this from this dog. I take it. You know, there's people that they don't even talk to them. Improve. You know, I'm paying for the dog. That improves my breeding program. I think there should be more communication between breeders. I don't think they should be all like locking themselves doing. It's good to do your homework, you know, in private, but it's good to offer what you have so other people could improve. And if they improve, we all improve. I think we should breed for create more dogs that will transcend on the pedigrees and be able to contribute in the benefit of the breed. I don't think we should be breeding for ribbons. I don't think we should be breeding for prices. They are nice, yes. You won't see a ribbon in my house. I donate them to clubs, or I leave them in in the show. I don't like ribbons. They collect dust. That's not the purpose of breeding. You should produce dogs that when you see pedigrees, you see that they are supporting lines, improving people that are starting, people that will have the confidence of breeding and repeating your dogs in the pedigree, obtaining good results and improving a breed. I think that's what we should keep our focus on. And if we do that, the future will be very bright.
Well, I want to thank you guys once again for joining us today and for volunteering your time. We always appreciate your knowledge and expertise. And
Thank you for having us.
absolutely, it's been great. I'm sure we could sit here and talk a lot more, but I don't know about you, but I've got 3 bitches in season in the house, and I hear my dog starting to howl back there a little bit. So
Forgive my island English. Sometimes I get stuck, so I try my best.
it was great. No, absolutely. I appreciate all the questions that came in, and for those out there listening, and for those of you that missed any of this, here in just a minute, it'll load back up on Facebook, and then you can watch it from the beginning, and it will be saved on the page. And so, you know, thank you again. I think you guys are excellent, and I've really enjoyed this. I'm going to have you hang back while I stop the live feed.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Make sure that went off. I think it did.
It went off on my screen.
Did it say?
It doesn't say live anymore.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. That's great. Thank you. I loved it.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
Learned a
Good
lot.
to see you all.
Marked off the list.
At one point, I don't know where to go in my house. There were the dogs barking to the neighbor, the big dog, the Malinois on the lap. Then the neighbor wanted to do the lawn. I'm like, I'm running all over the house.
No, that's okay. Like when Fran did her interview and her husband kept popping in the background, like you'd see him kind of wander through, like.
I told mine if he came in that he was going to pay dearly. And so he came in about, I don't know, a quarter till, and he's like, "You look great, baby. Break a leg." And then I haven't seen him since. I told him I'd come get him when I was ready for him.
There you go. Well, at least he followed instructions, so that's
Well, you have to threaten him with bodily harm, or that doesn't always work.
I
Yeah,
bet
it was fun, Lexa. Thanks a lot for having me.
Oh,
I enjoyed
absolutely.
it.
I'm so glad you guys agreed
Thanks
to
a
do
lot.
it. Like I said, I know I'm very familiar with a lot of the dogs you talked about, but not everybody is. And so I think it's good for people, because a lot of the newer people are coming in with miniatures. And I think it's important to see you guys and to hear what you have to say and to hear about dogs that may be in their pedigree and things like that. I think it made me feel more comfortable to come approach you at a show, or like I said, just like Cindy says, just to educate about anything. So
well, I can say this now, that so many people just want instant gratification and start winning, and that's none of us got to where we're at with that attitude.
No.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't have that attitude.
Hard work. Hard work.
Well, especially in miniatures. And I don't think people realize how hard it is in miniatures, and if they haven't done their homework, what miniatures look like 30 years ago to what they look like now. And I tell people that all the time when they complain about, well, the standards and blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
man, they have no idea.
Seen these minis we have now are gorgeous, and they're 10 times better quality than some of the standards that are out there right now. And the mini breeders have just worked like dogs to get these dogs out here that are just beautiful.
Well, Martha Grantham said something to me years ago when we were pushing for separation of the breeds. And like I said, I don't honestly care anymore. But she said something to me that made me stop and go, oh, what she said to me, because the standard smooths were in trouble there for a while. And she goes, if you pull your miniatures out of there, we have no competition. And that made me pause.
Yeah.
Because that's how good our miniatures were getting compared to the standard dachshunds that were losing it, at the time. So.
And that's how I've always felt too.
Yeah.
Very. I think that what kept us improving was having the competition and the goal to breed better dogs than the ones that were beating us. If we separate, I think it will just rely on some kind of regionalism, like every mini breeder will domain on their area and that's it. It's not like we need to move our butt and produce better dogs. We really need to breed and improve.
Well, now it's kind of flipped. Now it's the standard people that have to get off their butt and get really busy, because we've had so many people that have passed away. I don't feel like there's a lot of places for us to go. Just really looking around, trying to be real picky. And so I know that I have to try to be on my A game. I'm sitting here while we're in quarantine looking at my breeding program going, okay, this is kind of a hot mess. What am I going to do?
Yeah, and it's
now what? And
it's like the stuff forcing. There's no dog out there that it's better than my bitch. How am I going to improve? How am I going to how I'm going to get better shoulders? How I'm going to improve feet? If all the dogs, you don't want a litter of puppies. So it's getting very challenging to breed better standards.
Well, and I know here in Texas, when you go to a show, I always try to find out who's there, like before I get there, because I'm like, who's going to cut my throat today? I know when Steve goes to a show with Harlot and he calls and says, oh, well, Cindy's here. And I'm like,
no.
We all do that. We all do that.
I'll do it, and it's like, okay, well, all right, you know what's the next step? And I'm so glad we had the conversation about, Valeria, you brought it up about always breeding to what you have and just kind of keeping the status quo. And I was just having that conversation with Arvin yesterday. I was like, I've got a list of stud dogs here I could use and breed the same, and I know I'd be just fine. I was like, but I want to go to that next level. Now what do I do? And trying to figure out what to do. And so.
Where I might go if I had standard smooths, unless Chris has got something sitting in her house. I like Randy. You've had some beautiful black and tan. I remember black and tan.
Yeah.
Standard smooths is what, of course, I remember. But that
Yeah.
Randy Eltringham has got beautiful breed type on her dog. I don't know what the pedigree is, but consistently those gals come out with beautiful standards.
She sent me yesterday, emailed me 2 or 3 pedigrees, and I've talked to Diane Paransky, and I talked with Arvin, and now because we're trying to figure out how to breed Harlot, so it's not just me making that decision. So now I've got Steve in on it, so I have to find something that he likes and I like, which we don't always see eye to eye. So we'll see how that goes. But I've got 5 bitches here that need to be singled out. And they all need to be bred. So I'm looking at like, okay, well, I better get this figured out, because when the shows open back up, I've got to get them finished if I can as fast as possible, because they're all pushing 2-3 years old now, and they need to be bred, because I either held them out for this show or DCA or whatever. Now we're just shut down. Like, oh shit, now what do I do?
So they're sitting just needing singles?
Just singles.
Yeah.
I've got 3 of them that just need single. My chocolate bitch, Chelsea, that I held out for DCA, I've only ever shown her one time. And now she's going to be pushing 18 months old by the time DCA rolls around. And she needs everything. And then I've got my bitch that tried to kill herself on the fence. She needs everything. She has a major.
Bless her heart.
Look like a shark. So,
okay.
Anyway, that's where we are. So I don't know. It's hard though, but I appreciate you guys. I really admire all the work that you've done, and I've said too, if I have a beautiful miniature that comes into my ring, I will more than likely consider that over any standard.
No.
Just judge what's brought you.
That's right.
Judge what's brought you.
It's
That's
hard.
right.
But I tell you, like, well, Cindy can tell you, we went up to Iowa back in September, and I judged up there. And I'm so glad Cindy came, because it was hard. I was like, okay.
Well, I had no idea what, we were trying to get majors. I was trying to get away from Lex's bitches and get my bitches major. I had no idea. I'm like, well, I had never won anything under Lexa before, but I'm like, well, I'm going to enter her, because you never know what's going to be there, whatever. I mean, I always give people a few chances. And I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
And so ended up being a really good trip. For sure. I got my majors.
I said, well, Cindy walked in the ring, and I was like, oh, thank God.
There's going to be a good dog here.
I mean, I found some dogs. There were some good, a few good dogs up there, but I tell you what, if the mini long people do not pull it together, I don't know what they're going to do, because there's like 10 people in my opinion, 10 people in the country that have really drop dead gorgeous mini longs. And then everybody else is just mediocre to garbage. And they're everywhere. I don't know if they're really popular in pet homes right now, if it's because of the different colors. I don't know what it is, but there's a million of them out there, but there's not.
I hope that
outstanding.
I hope that we inspired people to want to do better.
Yeah.
And to start with education.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound one way or the other, but that's how you're successful. You got to put in the time to get the knowledge, because it's not like you can just snap your finger and understand all of it. And I think, and there is so many with the mindset, well, it finished, we should breed it, and then they wonder why people don't take them serious.
Or what's even worse, we finished it, we should special it. A special used to mean something.
Yeah.
Now I think. A special used to be a special dog. Now it's just a dog that's a champion out there. This whole grand champion level thing.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that, but I didn't want to make it a negative discussion.
Yeah.
I held my tongue.
Well, I think everybody had really good input, and
Yeah.
I hope that that they're happy with our performance and that we,
All the
enlightened
comments
and
on there have
inspired.
they've been very positive looking through. They really enjoy these. And like I said, it's just to get people to think, to
Right.
listen and to think. That's half the battle. People don't want to think anymore. They just want someone to hand it to them and they win and they go home and they breed more champions. But to me, it's to stimulate the conversations, to blow the dust out between your ears, to start thinking about it. Think about how you feel about it, and listen to really experienced people. And this is a great format for us and the time to do it. We don't have time at DCA to sit around and talk like that anymore. I mean, I guess you could if you made the time, but it's just hard.
Right.
Which one of y'all brought up the lack of rap?
Me, I did.
Okay, I didn't want to
Chris.
say it because I didn't want to piss off our world friends, but
It's terrible.
a lot of the foreign dogs
Yes.
are
Yes.
straight down from the shoulder. They're pretty from the
Yes.
side.
I was gonna say that now.
Yeah.
And not all of them, but whenever you see a video, it's always from the side. And anytime I've made them send me a down and back, I throw up. So
Yeah.
I know. And there's so many of them like that these new people think it's normal. That's what it's supposed to be. That's why I brought it up.
Yes, right.
Because they don't know that that's not what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
If
They're fixated on the upper arm and the shoulder layback, but there's got to be this wrap that goes around the rib cage with.
Yeah.
exactly.
They say, oh, the front feet are bended. That's crooked. That's not good.
Right, and they're supposed to be
Right.
bent. Yeah.
And the problem is that people.
This is what's not good.
Because they are
Yes.
imports.
Yeah.
Because if they are imports, they have to be good. No, how many dogs I have import and they are in pet homes, very expensive pets. I won't show that shit.
Well, are they import because they can't get something here?
Or they're not
Yeah.
patient enough. I mean, people have
Well, but I
contacted.
mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
People got to prove themselves. However they go to prove themselves. The one person I was talking about that I watch is actually that Janie, what's her name, the blonde lady, I think she's from Oklahoma, in Mini Longs. Now that gal has improved. Jeannie Brock.
Yeah.
That gal has improved her dogs. Now, when she started out, and I think she went and got some dogs, some bloodlines from out of the country, and that girl did her homework, and I respect. Talk about somebody I admire. I admire that she didn't give up and that she did what she had to do to get to where she wanted to be.
Right.
And she is a contender. She wins the variety fairly often. Hazel, you have a hairball? We have a hairball in the kitchen.
Uh-oh.
Gagging up a hairball. So my dachshund has a hairball. Anyway, so this has been great, y'all.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I hope we helped some people, and
Well, and I'll tell you what I tell the other panels. Don't be surprised if you get a bunch of new Facebook friend requests or messages. That has kind of trended a little bit on the last few panels. People just wanting to make connections. They feel a little more brave now to come up.
Yeah.
well, that's fine.
I think it's great. I'm all about it. You got to start talking. And we're not at shows right now, so they don't have another outlet to really
Right.
communicate. So this is a good platform for that. But I appreciate your knowledge and expertise and your time. It was amazing.
I had fun. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Have fun.
Thanks again.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
great day.
See you next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So
Okay.
do we sign ourselves out?
I'll do it.